What would you say a first-time commercial investor should know before buying their first property?
I would say it's really understanding what the process is, what your business looks like, what it can afford, making sure you understand what it takes to go into a building and what zoning you need, really understanding how important it is to have a good realtor in place or broker in place, depending on who you're working with, and understanding what their experience is within the type of business that you're opening. Because I may have opened 40 doctor's offices, but never a lay-down yard. And the person that's going to know what obstacles need to be overcome are very important for protection standards for what your business is, and being able to ask you the right questions so that you can ensure that you have a plan in place so that your business will be set up to be successful.
Welcome to the Homeowner Hookup.
Where we break down everything you need to know about real estate.
Straightforward, practical, and always up to date.
We're your hosts, Megan Huey
And Sydney Ragusa.
Let's dive in. Hey, Sid.
Hi, Meg.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. How are you?
Good. We have a very special guest with us today. We have Nicole Ryan. She is the Director of Commercial Real Estate at United Real Estate Gallery. She has 20 years of real estate experience and 10 plus years in the commercial realm. And she is here to tell us all about commercial real estate.
Can I add that she's a complete badass?
Yes, she is.
She's a complete badass. One of my first ever deals in real estate was actually with Nicole. I think it was maybe like my 10th deal ever that I had done in real estate, and it was with Nicole like 10 years ago.
Nice. I remember that. I do remember that.
Yeah, I know.
It's funny.
And then we ended up with the same company.
Yeah, we did. Well, also, I have very good stories about Nicole as well, which I will sprinkle in here because I have done a few commercial deals and I refuse to do them without Nicole. And I always feel very honored because your reputation precedes you, and people will be like, oh, no, she won't work with anyone. She only takes referrals because you end up doing most of the work because commercial is very different. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten the opportunity to work with her on quite a few now, and I'm so honored and excited. She's awesome.
Well, it's an honor to be here with both of you. I trust you both completely, and you guys are some of the hardest workers in the real estate industry. So thank you for having me.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Okay, so let's kind of get into what made you lean towards commercial real estate, because you were already in it for about 10 years, and then you started really focusing mainly on commercial. What made you do that?
Well, my first 10 years in the industry was tied to lending. So I was an underwriter, mostly residential. Towards the end of my underwriting experience, TD Bank gave me the opportunity to work on some high-level commercial lending underwriting, and I was able to actually learn commercial from contract through close and had a really good understanding of what that looked like. Mm-hmm. Once I became a realtor and a broker and was working in the residential space, I saw how much of a need there was. We were in a firm. Our firm has 400 to 600 agents, depending on when we are within our life cycle of the brokerage. And there were so many leads, even for myself, that I was giving out. And as you give out those leads, unfortunately, if the value of the deal isn't $400,000 or more, or the people haven't been in business for 10 years, or they're not a well-known company or a national company, a lot of the bigger box shops were turning away our leads. Through that, we basically had a big need within the brokerage and within our own personal relationships that we had to have opportunity to be able to work a little bit more. So my business partner and I at the time went to our brokerage and asked if we could start a commercial space within the entity. And I knew everything from contract to close, and my partner knew everything on a C-suite executive space. And together we were able to build out the commercial brand that United Real Estate Gallery Commercial has right now.
Yeah, that's wild. Wow, okay. Yeah, you've been doing it a long time. Mm-hmm. Super experienced. I've heard this woman go through the entire commercial contract. She knows it start to finish, inside and out. So Sydney and I, we have some questions for you. We're just going to kind of bounce back and forth.
Yeah.
First, what are you seeing in the commercial real estate market right now? Any major shifts buyers, sellers, or investors should be aware of?
I think commercial has had an expected growth a little bit this year. It had slowed down. We had COVID that slowed the market down on the commercial space. We had the commercial banking crisis that has recently happened that had slowed down the commercial space. And now what we have is like high insurance payments and high CAM reconciliations, and it's harder for investors to make properties perform. And so it's slowed the market down a lot. We haven't had a lot of growth in the past 3 years on the commercial side within the Jacksonville market. And I think now we're seeing more confidence come to the market. So I do think there's some growth with caution happening, and I'm really excited about this year. This time of the year through like February, as fiscal calendars and the regular calendar is ending and the beginning of the year is starting, there's a lot of people that are looking for what they want to do moving into next year. And I'm busier than I've been in about 4 or 5 years. So I think there's a lot of confidence within the commercial space coming back, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
A lot of people that we work with, different lenders and other brokerages have been giving us very similar feedback that they're very, very busy right now, which is exciting.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, and then for anyone who does not know, how would you explain what CAM is?
So CAM is when you lease a property as an investor, you have the market rent, which is going to just be what the average price per square foot is on a lease. And then you have CAM if it's a modified gross lease or a triple net lease. And what the CAM does is that's going to go through your property taxes for the property. It's going to go through your insurance on the property. It's going to go through your management fees, any fixed expenses that are in. You divide that out over the period or over the square footage of the entire property. And then every tenant within that building basically or property would pay a percentage, their appropriate percentage of what the expenses are for the property.
So that basically ensures that the owner of the entire property, they have the taxes, the insurance paid for by the tenants individually. And that number can vary, correct?
Yeah, that number can vary. It is auditable. So you typically have a CPA that assists you in giving you what that dollar per square foot is on an annual basis. But then come beginning of the year, you go through an audit process and then they do a reconciliation, and anything that they were short, that would get passed back through to the tenant. So that is something on a lease that needs to be reviewed on an annual basis. And you should be educated on that as a tenant to ensure that you're trying to ensure that those can only change on a very limited, like you can usually put a cap on
the increase. Yeah, that was something when Cody and I first started leasing for the landscaping business. You know, that was not really something explained, and I was not even in real estate at the time. So I think it's very important for people, for business owners who are going out and they are renting spaces, they need to have commercial real estate agents looking over their leases. It's so important because I feel like in most cases, leases are always in the favor of the owner, not necessarily the tenant. So you can get really screwed over if you're not diligent in looking at over
100%.
Everything. Yeah.
100%. And there's certain things that can't be capped, like property taxes, for example. But there's controllables like pest control or improvements to a property that you typically can cap. An attorney would help you with that. Your broker will help you with that when you're going through what that looks like. But very similar to what you were just saying, there is a big difference between the residential review and a commercial review because commercial is 100% tenant and buyer beware.
Yeah.
There's no protections in place. Everybody in place for each side of the transaction is 100% out there for themselves, and especially leases are 100% drafted to protect the landlord only.
Yeah.
So if you don't have somebody that's reviewing the lease, especially an attorney or a good broker that is able to assist you in giving you guidance, it's not set up to protect you at all. There's zero protection.
Absolutely. I call the commercial realm the wild, wild west, which is why, because I am a mainly, residential agent, when I dip my toes into the commercial realm, I want to make sure I'm representing everyone to the best of my ability. And that's why I always seek guidance from Nicole, because if there is something that I would miss, oh my gosh, like I would never be able to forgive myself, So that's one thing where if you are not experienced in it, you need to have somebody who is looking over these who is experienced in it. This is not a fake it till you make it industry. That is you need to know what you are doing. And when you're
100%.
hiring an agent, you need to make sure they have a team around them that knows what they are doing.
100%. And it's an entire team. So you're going to have civil engineers. You're going to have people that are going to assist you with certificate of occupancy. You're going to need people that can guide you through if you're a tenant, the lease, so that you're negotiating appropriately and taking all of your risks into consideration appropriately to make sure that's the right space for you. But it's also making sure that you can run your business out of the space and that it's up to codes, because none of that's protected.
Right. Absolutely.
So, yeah, I know that you said that commercial is looking pretty positive right now. What sectors in commercial real estate do you feel like are performing best between like retail, offices, mixed use? What are you, industrial? What are you seeing is performing best right now?
I definitely think industrial is one of the strongest sectors within the market right now. Land and retail would be your other two. Office space is something that has a very slow growth happening right now. It's about 1% higher than it's been over the past 2 years right now. Class A office space is performing okay. Office condos is performing okay, but all other office space is actually sitting on the market a very, very long time. The other thing is investment properties are sitting on the market a long time. Part of that is due to there's lending restrictions. A lot of lenders are looking at only in secondary marketing really like owner-occupied property, and the investors right now, you're having to put it close to 40% down if you're getting loans or pay cash for investment properties. A lot of that is tied into the return being a lot lower than it's been over the past few years, because insurance is higher than it's been in a very long time. Taxes are going up higher than they've been in a long time. And to get these properties to perform, especially with people going out of business and not staying within the office space for the entire growth of their lease, there's just a lot of movement within a lot of those buildings. So owner-occupied is something that most lenders want to see the most right now.
Yeah. Okay. And why do you feel like light industrial is performing best right now?
Primarily, I would say manufacturing and the port are doing better than they've ever done. There's a lot of people coming to the Jacksonville market on an economic development level. We're the third fastest growing city in all of Florida right now. And so there's just a lot of opportunity. There's some really cool industrial projects that are happening on the north side and towards the port that are very exciting. Right now, I would say there's, so much growth within laydown yards and warehouses. Industrial light is just a very good zone. There's so much that you can do within anything that's zoned industrial light. Almost any type of commercial business can be run out of that zoning, and what's out there is out there, and they're not rezoning a lot of property to industrial right now, and the value is just growing dramatically.
I was going to say, I remember with the light industrial that we had on Beaver Street, you were saying how rare it is to have light industrial now, and they're not rezoning. So it's one of those, like, when you can get it, you really want to get it, because it's hard for it to be rezoned to that. So
yeah, it's hard for it to get rezoned like that, and it's hard to find property that's zoned light industrial if you're looking for land that hasn't already been developed out. So to be able to find something at a reasonable price is also, it's very, very difficult to find. People are renegotiating leases right now. I just renegotiated a lease off of Commonwealth where they were paying about $8,000 a month. And with their lease renewal to market rates, they're now paying close to $24,000 a month for that same space, just with a lease renewal and what the market's calling for right now.
Oh my goodness. That is a huge jump.
Yeah. That would take the wind from beneath your sails.
Yeah.
That is
It's
massive.
Hard. It's good as a property owner. It's hard as a business owner, though. Yeah. And it's hard for us that are trying to protect all of the clients that we're working for. And it's more important than ever to negotiate appropriately. The renewals is a very, very important thing to negotiate appropriately. Within the lease, you'll see that you can renew to the market rate. And if you don't put protection standards in place to what that is and who is the person that gets to dedicate that, or a formula of how that's going to be calculated appropriately, it leaves it open for negotiation. So it's not really a protection that you have in place.
Yeah. And I'll speak from experience. I feel like when you are a business owner and you're operating and you're having to move spaces, I think it's very easy to just overlook some of those things because you're like, yes, I need to get in. Like, my lease is up here. I got to move here. I'm expanding, And people are just moving faster than they need to be. And they really need to be stopping and like reading everything that is going over, because you can really get a huge increase there in a couple years, especially if things are not in place.
Absolutely. So. And even within the lease, they're going to do a 3% annual increase. And we're starting to see those go up to where different owners are doing 4% and 5% and 6%. And if you don't pay attention to what that looks like or what a holdover looks like, you can really put your business in jeopardy if it's not growing to those standards.
What would you say a first-time commercial investor should know before buying their first property?
I would say it's really understanding what the process is, what your business looks like, what it can afford, making sure you understand what it takes to go into a building and what zoning you need, really understanding how important it is to have a good realtor in place or broker in place, depending on who you're working with, and understanding what their experience is within the type of business that you're opening. Mm-hmm. Because I may have opened 40 doctor's offices, but never a lay down yard. And the person that's going to know what obstacles need to be overcome are very important for protection standards for what your business is, and being able to ask you the right questions so that you can ensure that you have a plan in place so that your business will be set up to be successful. Also, an escape clause. So subletting spaces that you have and being able to sell your building for what are purchasing it for, so that if your business does not succeed, if you're a newer business, that you are not stuck with $10,000 to $20,000 a month in a rental property that you're not able to unload. Because once you sign a lease, the lease is yours, and you have a personal guarantee on that. And 95% of the time, almost 100% of the time, if you're a newer business and have not been established long enough, and you're still going to be having to make those payments even if you're no longer in business.
Yeah. Oof. That would not be fun. On top of the many other bills that everyone has.
Yeah. So this one may be a loaded one because I know it's a lot. But how do you analyze commercial properties different than residential properties?
That is a loaded question.
Because we all know it's way different.
It's not a one-size-fits-all, right? Every property is completely different. And what is important to one buyer isn't important to another. So if you're an investor, what matters is your return on your investment and your cap rate. And you're actually valuing that property based off of paper, not anything tied to the real estate at all. Mm-hmm. And these investors want to see, depending on the type of property that it is, somewhere from 5 to 10% return. And so the valuation on that is 100% based off of how you get the right tenants in the building and how you get that property to perform to get it to the standard that you need it to be. But on the rest of the property, a lot of that is tied into, if you're a buyer and an owner user, it's very similar to residential, right? But in commercial, you can go back 2 years. You look at the comparables that are available within the area. You make sure that, the use is going to be a very important thing, and the highest and best use is the important thing. So when you're comparing it to the additional comparables, it's you're just comparing them to each other. So you're not going to compare a church, even though the zoning is one specific thing, to a gas station, even though they're in the same zoning. So just having an understanding of what the existing use, what the highest and best use is, and then you're just going back through comparables in relation to what that is. Where it gets a little wonky is when you're just looking at it from an investment perspective and having an understanding that it's truly who your tenants are, if they've renewed, because there's extra value when people renew and they're going to stay there long term, and what the return is on the space, and that you can, do a projected return based off of what the market is doing.
So it's less emotional and much more strictly business.
I don't know. I think people take their business very, very personally. Yeah. So I think it's 50-50.
Fair.
People's businesses are, their babies
livelihood.
And their livelihood. So I would almost say it's almost more emotional, even though that is what you hear other agents say is, I want to get into commercial because it's not, as emotional as residential, but I would say it's pretty similar.
I have heard that. You're right. And I would disagree. It is emotional. It's very 100%. Emotional. Yeah.
And it should be. This is something that you're building from the ground up, and it's it is your baby, and you want to make sure that wherever you're putting yourself is going to bring you the most. Now, sometimes it's not. Like some investors, out-of-state investors, if you're truly looking at it for a return, then there's no emotion in it at all. But if it's owner-occupied and it's a specific person that built their business within that space, even if it's become an investment property, it is personal to them.
Yeah, yeah. Where would you say people are coming from out of state?
Do we have a lot of people coming from out of state right now, or is it really local?
That's a good question. So as I was preparing a little bit for our meeting today, I actually spoke with 2 lenders to see, in relation to what their experience is. For me, it's about 50-50 because I do work with a lot of investment properties. And unfortunately, right now, there's just not a lot of money out there. So you're going to have a lot of cash buyers that are looking at some of these investment properties. And a lot of them are coming from out of state because Jacksonville's growing so much faster than other areas. But it is still 50-50 for me. A lot of the lenders that I'm talking to actually aren't seeing as many out-of-state buyers as you would expect. Yeah. So they've not seen a lot. So I think a lot of the out-of-state are your cash buyers. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a lot from the Northeast. I'm seeing a lot from Texas.
I feel like in residential, we're seeing a lot from the Northeast and a lot from Texas as well.
Yeah.
Just in an overall search. So it would make sense that the trends would be similar in who all is coming here. Yeah, they're bringing their businesses here.
I have a couple of countries that I have a lot of high buyer pool within. So I think we have a lot of, international buyers that are looking to buy.
There are
a
lot of international buyers moving here as well for the residential space. I think it was like over 60% coming into Northeast Florida was international.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's super interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I wonder what drives that. I mean, I'm sure that's a loaded question.
That is a loaded question. Should we go country by country? Or?
When you guys figure it out, let me know. It's a very interesting thing. I think that will be impacted next year. I'm not the biggest subject matter expert on it, but it's something that Megan and I had talked about. But with a lot of the FinCEN changes that are happening and a lot of the cash recording that's going to be happening within the title companies, I do think it will be very interesting to see if our cash buyers actually go down next year with some of what that's going to look like.
Yeah, with those regulations going into place, yeah. What would you say are some red flags people overlook, when evaluating a property?
That's a good question as well. I think for me, a big red flag is going to be, especially with investors, people that don't take environmental hazards.
I was going to say environmental.
Getting a phase 1 on a property, a lot of people get waivers on those or choose to not do those at all. And you never know what has happened with some of these properties.
For the people that may not know, what is a phase 1?
So a phase 1 is an environmental report where they do soil samplings and have scientists go out to the property and they'll do soil samplings. They'll look at what kind of endangered animals are out on the property, what their recommendations are, looking at wetlands based off of the property. A deal that Megan and I actually just recently had together actually was a piece of property that you would never have known, but they had oil on the property and even buried within the property. And at one point in that past, they had to get a phase 2, which that's like a remediation report on how much it would cost to get the environmental hazard removed from the property. And if you don't ask the right questions or get it done and never know that it was done, you would not know what you were walking into. And I've had some properties where they had to remove 4 feet of soil over like a half a mile, and it was like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars before they could even build their building on the property.
So when there's oil within the land, why would it impact purchasing or selling? I know with wetlands, it has to be a specific, a distance away from it, and that gets wetlands are a whole other ball game. But why would that be an issue? Is it a lending issue? Is it someone could pop up with an environmental fine? How does it work?
All of the things. So lending is going to most of the time have a requirement to either have a waiver, which means that they can pull a report and see if there's been any environmental damage within a certain radius of the subject property, and they can do a waiver by that. If there was environmental damage on the property, you're not protected. The person that sold you the property is not required to do the remediation on it. So once the city finds out that there is an environmental damage on the property, you're immediately responsible to take care of that. And it can be a very large, high dollar price to get that remediated. Not only is it the right thing to do is to remediate for the environmental standards, but you are going to be 100% responsible. And your realtor that sold you the property isn't responsible for it. You can be, because if you give advice on what that needs to be other than getting the phase 1 environmental appropriately, but your entire team is not responsible. You're responsible to ensure that you do that due diligence, and it can cost a lot of money to have that remediated.
Yes, I know that.
So when a customer comes to you and they are asking about buying versus leasing a commercial space, how would you advise them, and if they should go with a lease or if they should purchase a commercial space?
It's going to come down very similar to residential. It's going to be a consultation, and you're going to want to ask them what their goals are and how long they've been in business. If you haven't been in business 2 years, you're not going to qualify to be able to purchase a property unless you have cash for that property. So then we would guide you towards leasing and what that looks like. But it's also, how long do you want to stay in this location? How quickly do you think you're going to grow? Where do you see yourself wanting to be? Like when you're first starting out, you may not be able to afford to be at the town center and pay $35 to $40 a square foot. You may need to start somewhere off the main road that's $20 to $15 a square foot. And that's not going to be a long-term lease. That may only look like 2 years or 3 years, and then you want to move to a better space. If you're in a position of being able to be where you see yourself being for the length of your business, then that makes sense sometimes to purchase. Also, what the areas are doing. So different areas, depending on what your land is, if you can afford like industrial land right now, it's actually cheaper to purchase and have a mortgage on the property than what the rental rates are. So if you can afford to make some of those purchases, even in your personal name and not your business name, or if you have the cash to be able to do that, the expenses are much less to own versus leasing in a lot of situations if you can get to qualify for that. But it's a consultation. It's not a one size fits all. It's just very similar to residential. It just makes sense for what makes sense for them. And you have to understand what their goals are, short term and long term, and just help them accomplish that.
Absolutely. What is something about commercial real estate that most people misunderstand?
So I would say something that a lot of people do misunderstand is something that we've kind of talked about already. So it's not one size fits all. You need to be prepared to negotiate. You need to understand that the seller is only looking out for their own best interests. And so the way that it's presented to you isn't necessarily the way that property, it's not going to necessarily be the highest and best use. It's not going to be listed appropriately at the price that potentially the property is looked for, but you just need to be, or listed for, prepared to negotiate and prepared to research the property and do a lot of due diligence. I would also say it takes 45 to 60 days of due diligence to really look at a property appropriately.
That is, I think, a misunderstanding is that you can just go in and like buy it and that's it, especially if you have cash. Like there still is due diligence, especially with lenders. It takes longer generally than residential real estate.
Yeah, and the appropriate expectation, even on the time to close. So if you're doing an SBA loan, it takes 90 days to close that deal. It's very difficult to close it much sooner than that. So it's also understanding that you need a lot more time to be able to go in there and do the appropriate due diligence and qualifications. And depending on if it's a conventional bank that's doing the loan, that's going to take 45 to 60 days usually. Some lenders will do 30 if you don't have to do as much due diligence, but it's just to be patient and understand that there's a lot that goes into the process.
Yeah. I really, really just want to stress how important it is to have, if you work with a residential real estate on a regular basis, you trust them, just make sure that they have a commercial team that they can go to and work with.
Yeah.
Because it is very rare for someone to be 100% well-versed in both. And I think a lot of times agents, they get a little, not greedy, but I guess, yeah, you could say greedy. Like they want to take it on because they don't want to turn away the sale and maybe even just want the experience, but they're too prideful to split the deal with somebody, right?
Yeah. And you also have to know what you don't know, and you have to be able to just swallow your pride.
Yeah.
And because you are going to mess up a lot of people's lives if you
Yeah, I will forever go to Nicole, I think, on everything.
keep your ego in check.
Yeah, I definitely keep my ego in check. That's for sure. I'm like,
100%.
I want to work with Nicole on everything because that is what you are. You're an expert in.
And I would say even commercial brokers do that, right? Like you're 100% accountable for every single thing that you discuss on the commercial space with any of your clients or any of your partners. And you can't be scared to bring a subject matter expert into a deal. And you want to be able to make sure from an agent perspective that you want to be able to pay other people out for the work and the acknowledgement that they do. But I have no problem ever bringing in an attorney. I have no problem ever bringing in alternate commercial brokers that are really good at what they do in that space. I have people that I have agents, we call it coffee with competitors, that we meet with on a biweekly basis so that we can kind of discuss our deals. And if we're not subject matter experts, we know who to either bring it in to or who to pull into the deal or who to give the deal to make sure that it's something that they're really good at. Like quick service.
Such a good idea. I love that. I love that.
Even both ways, like if I'm going to lose a deal, I can kind of give them a heads up so that they have the opportunity to be able to kind of go after some of those deals that I know I'm going to lose and what I did to not perform as high as I should and to get coached up from them on what has done the same for them. I feel like anytime you can meet with anybody that's within your industry that's willing to share the goods and the bad parts of the business, I think you make yourself stronger through that. But you never want to work on, I hold myself accountable to ensure that I never work on anything that I'm not qualified to touch on or work on. And you definitely want to make sure that you're open and have the relationships in place to pull other people in. both ways for success and if you need help to be able to have them work on those deals with us for sure.
Yeah, something I tell my kids all the time. You are the average of the top 5 people that you surround yourself with. Make sure those people are better than you.
100%.
So that you're bringing yourself up and learning from other people.
100%.
So,
and there's so much to learn. Like there's so much on residential real estate and on commercial real estate. And you just always want to make sure that you're in a place that you're with subject matter experts and you know who you can trust to go to.
I agree. I agree. So can you walk us through one of your most challenging or rewarding deals?
One of our recent closings that we had was industrial land. The buyer that came to us was not one of our buyers. He was somebody that purchased land in Arlington. For those of us that don't know, Arlington is doing the community reinvestment area, or Arlington CRA, right now. And if you purchase land, it's a trigger that you have to meet a new set standard of guidelines on how before you can open to get your certificate of use on what the property improvements need to be. And so we have a listing that we had that was land on the northeast side of town that somebody came to look at, and they were not able to open their business where they were currently. Came, got under contract with us, and we were able to help him be able to open the business that he wanted to be able to do there. But what made that property memorable for me, hopefully for you guys as well, is that we've worked with the seller. This is the second tenant that we've put within his space, and he had a comfort level on a specific price point with the prior tenant. And we were able to kind of go through the growth and the change that had happened and how much money he would be able to get out of that from a tenant perspective. And we were able to talk about what the value price would be for the acreage on that property. And we were able to actually negotiate, instead of a tenant perspective, having that buyer purchase the property. And that property sold for a lot more money than the seller ever would have dreamed he would have been able to get for that property. And because of that, and because of how important industrial is right now in the immediate area, we set a new set standard of a comparable for that whole area of town, and that we're going to open ourselves up to be able to help these people that have owned some of this land for generations be able to maximize their return for what that looks like. And I think that's going to be super exciting for that area, and that we all get to be a part of what that growth looks like, and people wanting to have conversations with us about how that can help their family or their business, or even putting tenants in a space where they never would have been able to make that kind of money before on that with whoever they choose to put on the land. So it's kind of exciting. So for me, it's memorable because we're in an exciting period within commercial real estate where there's so much change and growth happening, and we get to be a really big piece of these people's business and life right now.
Yeah, I would agree. And those people that owned the property before, they hold a very special place in my heart. They were one of my first customers, definitely my first commercial sale. And we were able to get it leased out together, and it was for 2 years, I believe, right? And we were coming up, and then we were going to lease it out or sell it, and we ended up being able to sell it. And they're so thankful and so gracious and just like super appreciative of us for finding them this buyer. So.
And they were able to turn around and use 1031 exchange to purchase property in the state that they want to open their business within.
Yeah.
And have so much more equity in the existing property that they're purchasing now because of that 1031 exchange.
Yeah. I did the math on what they walked away with after just 2 years of owning that property, and like what they were making in rent and after they paid property taxes. And I'm like, good for you. That was a very smart investment for them. And it was quick. You don't usually see those, how fast it turns over. And that does go to show you how the commercial realm, especially light industrial, is moving on up.
100%. And it's so different. So it's interesting to see what's important to these investors, because on the commercial side, you're taking tenants on for 3 to 10 years versus having to turn a tenant over every single year. So it gives you the opportunity to sit and let that asset grow and watch what the market's doing within that specific area. The marketing is so much different than what it would be on the residential side, because you have people that are there building their business, putting their own equity into the space and improving the space for you as an investor, which is super exciting.
Yeah, it is. Definitely.
What trends do you think are going to shape the commercial market over like the next 3 to 5 years?
I think it's going to be investors. I think that we're growing so fast, and Jacksonville is becoming so well known that I think we're going to get a lot of 1031 buyers, and I think we're going to get a lot of investors, potentially out-of-state investors, like we were saying earlier, that right now maybe 30 to 50% of our business. I think we're going to start seeing that trend grow to a larger percentage of people that want to come and hold on to property. We're already seeing that with larger parcels, that there's a lot of larger parcels getting sold to specific entities. So I think we're going to have a lot more of an investment appetite, which will be interesting for owner users and how much harder that might make it for owner users to be able to get into some of the property. But I do think that's where I see my own trends going within my properties.
Okay, so do you feel like the new stadium is going to catapult some things in downtown Jacksonville? I know that we've all really talked about downtown Jacksonville really needing a facelift, if you will, a makeover. And I know that they've taken steps to try to do that, but really we have 2 years. This is our last season at the bank, and then we'll be in Orlando for 2 years. Do you feel like the new stadium going in is going to, do you feel like that would be a good place for investors to look for a long-term hold?
That's a good question. I'm going to ask you guys the same thing with the same question. I absolutely do. I think the shipyard projects, right, which is going to be your, you have the retail and the office space and the single-family homes within that building. I do think that's a super exciting project. I do think the Class A office space and the growth and getting people to be in that immediate area and just the people involved in investing in that project are really huge. And I do think even the small improvements that have already happened at the stadium are amazing, and it's getting the appropriate type of attention that it needs. So 100% I do. I'm all involved in, downtown vision and economic development and all of the growth and movement that's happening downtown. I can already see it. I have a building across downtown that I represent that I'm already seeing a higher price per square foot in that immediate area by a ton of money because of all of the excitement and revitalization that's happening down there. So yes, I do think that there's a lot of positive movement with that. What do you guys think?
I agree. I agree 100%. I think if you can buy downtown right now, to do it.
Yeah, 100%. You guys both know I built a big part of my business at the beginning from short-term rentals. And honestly, I think that if you can get the proper zoning and, be able to really get a home that's not far from the stadium, walking distance would be great to be able to invest in a short-term rental down there and understand that your money's going to come from in season. Like, it's going to come from the football season. So you're going to make your money end of July through January, February, if the Jags ever make it to the Super Bowl. But if you can get a house down there, I think it would be an awesome opportunity.
Even for the, revitalization of downtown,
Absolutely.
I think it would be great short term, not just for the season, but I think even just all around. When people want to come, we have amazing weather all year long.
Yeah.
Downtown is close to a lot of things, and hopefully there will be so much more down there that people will want to come on a regular basis to visit. There will probably be something that I realize now, being a dance mom, cheer mom, like there is going to be competitions down there all the time and a lot of things going on. So people are going to want to come and then stay. So just having the Four Seasons too, that'll be a big help.
It'll be lovely.
I cannot wait to stay at the Four Seasons. I have so many people that ask me, like, why would you stay at the Four Seasons if you're local? I mean, first of all, I live in St. Augustine, so technically I'm out of town. But also, why wouldn't I just want to walk back and forth from the game to 100%. Be able to go?
It changes your experience 100%,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And short-term rentals are another super interesting thing, and downtown is an interesting place to have them because the regulations and the zoning and the allowances on where short-term rentals can be are changing dramatically in Florida. And you guys know more about that than I do as far as a single-family perspective. But I think downtown Jacksonville is a place within our local area that they're almost going to always have to allow that to be. So it's a safer place because I have sold professional athletes properties in St. Johns County that they purchased with the expectation of those being short-term rentals, and those currently are changing so drastically that they've had to hire attorneys to try to protect their assets because they can't make those homes that they can occupy anymore.
The city of St. Augustine has done that over the last 3 to 5 years, and it's been a rough adjustment.
100%. And so I think you're right. With the short-term rentals, I think it's a safer place to be able to do that. And the apartments downtown in Jacksonville are at like 90 to 100% occupied right now. So there's a huge need and desirability to be down there, which I think is super exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this podcast because it also highlights Jacksonville so much and the growth of Jacksonville and just overall, I mean, in the commercial realm, residential realm, just growth realm in general,
100%.
jobs. I mean,
aren't we the third fastest growing city in
Yeah.
the country right now?
Yeah.
I mean, that's outrageous.
That
and
is
I could
outrageous.
imagine with the new stadium and the First Coast Expressway over the next 2 to 3 years that it's going to be completed, it's just going to catapult.
First Coast Expressway, I'm so excited about.
I am
exciting.
ready for you to have the First Coast Expressway.
And if you haven't walked down Pearl Street lately and what JWB is doing in the Pearl Street district, it's amazing. And in the Cathedral district, like downtown is just changing to the positive in so many ways that if you haven't walked downtown lately, or drove through, just the changes that are happening down there, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
No, totally.
It is definitely fun. All right. So last question, unless we can think of anything else, what should someone ask a commercial agent before hiring them?
I feel like the interview should go both ways. So I think it should almost be an interview. You want to see how long they've been in the industry, how they communicate, if they've worked in the type of business that you're trying to be able to open up or the location that you're trying to open up and meet your business needs and how many of those they've done. Make sure that they have relationships in place to be able to help them through the whole process. And that includes architects, engineers, alternate brokers if they need to be able to speak with that, somebody that can assist them with like permit expediting. There's so much that goes into opening either an investment property, a business property, or even an office, and understand who can help them and if that person can help guide them through the entire process. If they haven't opened an office before and somebody doesn't have the ability to walk you into the fire marshal's office so that you can get somebody out there to look at the property and give you a punch list of what needs to be done, I mean, those are very, very important things. And it's just ensuring that you can work together and that they have a good team in place to help you and that they want to help you. Yeah. Mutual respect works both ways, and you want to make sure that you feel good working with people that are there and that they care for your business.
Yes, 100%. That is something that you and Sydney both have taught me. Like, hey, this has to be a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yes.
This is not just like real estate agents just like getting beat up.
Respect is a two-way street. And I think if somebody is disrespectful to you and your business, then respect is off for me too. So there's no point in us working together.
And
it's not about one transaction.
No.
So my biggest relationship started off as my smallest relationships. And I want to know that I'm here for you in 10 years when you come back and that we want, it's about the relationship and it's about how long we're going to be able to work together. And if you're in trouble, that you trust me, that you can come to me and we can try to work out resolution and how we can try to get you either out of the property or a better tenant. And if you can't trust each other both ways, like you just want to make sure you feel good about it. And it's somebody that's there forever because we want to help them and be a good relationship with them forever. It's more about the relationship than the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
We love that.
We appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much,
Nicole, we think so highly of you. You guys definitely, if you need a commercial agent or just want someone to ask questions about, she is the person to go to. So,
Nicole is the OG, the absolute best.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.